I'm Dr. Kimberly Manning.
And this is Dr. Ashley McMullen. And you're listening to the Human Doctor Podcast, where we explore the human side of medicine, along with teaching, living, learning, and all things in between. Using the power of storytelling, conversation, and connectedness.
Hey, we're two dope academic internal medicine doctors, but we ain't your doctors. So if you perceive anything we say here as medical advice, no, it ain't that. Also, the things we say, they only reflect our brilliant Black woman magic mind and not our employers.
You could have been anywhere, y'all, but you chose to be here with us, and we appreciate you. Let's go.
You sound good. You look good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
What's new?
You know, I feel like I'm finally kind of winding down from like a very, very busy, like academic semester, like between conferences and just, we're finally now transitioning to a new class of interns who just started this week. And I feel like, July for me feels like the beginning of summer. So I'm ready to just like wind down and do me for a little bit, which started with this morning. I finally got out of bed. It just turned into a self-care morning. I had therapy, went to the gym, made a healthy breakfast/lunch, and now I'm here.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. I like the self-care.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I am still in that space of trying to catch up on sleep. I spent the last 5 days as a chaperone at the Jack and Jill Southeastern Regional Teen Conference. And if you don't know what that is, just imagine over 1,000 teenagers between like 9th grade and 12th grade unleashed in one place with a whole bunch of moms trying their hardest to like herd cats.
Girl.
So I had approximately 10 cats that I was herding. The problem is that my inner teenager is still alive and well and filled with all the same mischief that they have. So they looking to have fun and I'm looking to let them, which is problematic.
Right. As a chaperone, I can see those realities conflicting.
Yes, but my crew was awesome. And I mean, honestly, like it was sleep deprivation on a level that like I have not dealt with in a very long time, probably since residency. But like all things that are really hard like that, when you finish, you have like this deep sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I don't think I would do it again.
Yeah.
But that's what I said after I had my first baby. I was like, I won't do that again. And then like some months pass and you just get delusional and forget how painful it was. And you're like, oh, I'll do it. It was good.
I love that. Yeah, we're gonna check back in with you a year from now and see if you're back on the chaperone game. But yeah, I saw a few pictures that you had posted on your personal page, and I was just like, that looks like my worst nightmare. And it looks like you might be having a good time. So
yeah, I know. But you know what? I think that the point of me even mentioning it here is to show people that we have lives outside of just going to work and precepting in the clinics and on the wards. Servant leadership is a really important part of me being whole. And for me, my servant leadership outside of work occurs through membership organizations. I've already talked about my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta, but Jack and Jill of America is a membership organization that I belonged to as a kid. My mother was a mother member, and it really helped me to grow as an emerging Black American leader. And it is as hard as it was to, again, to watch teens. It was really my privilege to have like this full circle moment of being able to tap folks on the shoulder, tell them, stop talking, stop chewing gum, get off your phone, shaking people awake, all the things. The only difference from like 1988 is that I just didn't have a cell phone. Other than that, it was exactly the same.
glad there's some consistency there.
I shook somebody awake and she was looking at me like, I said, I know your pain. I said, but you got to be more smooth with how you're going to fall asleep. You cannot put your whole head and body down on a table while the mayor of Atlanta is speaking to you. Like, no.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. It
Mm.
was good.
Mhm.
I just want to shout out once again that June 22nd was the 2-year mark of my father making his transition. I like to acknowledge that. And for people who experience such milestones, just a word of encouragement to you. Grief and missing people is the price we pay for really, really special love. And you can't have both, right? You can't, like we will all perish. And
Mhm.
but it is really nice knowing that literally the only thing I have to do when it comes to my dad is miss him. And
Yes.
I can do that. That is
Yeah.
something I can do. I know that grief looks different on everybody, so I'm not trivializing how people grieve, but I'm just maybe offering it as something for reflection that if you find yourself crying and as you remember somebody, maybe you can just flip that and realize that extreme of emotion is
Mhm.
because you were blessed to have somebody so amazing to love you.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you for naming that and continuing to honor the legacy of Mr. Tony Draper. It's incredible how we continue to speak folks into existence, and
Mm.
their presence still fills the space. And on that note, I also just want to briefly shout out a colleague and emerging friend, whether she knows it or not, Lucy Kalanithi, who I had the privilege of, doing a fireside chat with past Friday for a group of summer students at Stanford. For folks who don't know, Lucy is the wife of the late Paul Kalanithi, who wrote When Breath Becomes Air, published in 2016, one of the most incredible accounts, both in his story, their story, and Lucy, who continues that legacy and has so much beautiful wisdom when it comes to both grief and living well. So lifting up both those names on this day, and yeah, shout out to Lucy.
When I was listening to her epilogue to the book on audiobook while running the Paris half marathon and
Wow.
hysterically crying while listening to her narrate. And people kept coming up to me to console me in French. Meanwhile, I speak no French. And I was just like, if I ever meet this sister, I'm gonna be like, look, you had people looking at me crazy, crying at what you said, but in the most beautiful way. And I was trying to
Uh,
explain, but they didn't understand English and I didn't understand French. But yeah, y'all should read that book. It was
yes. Can't wait to let her know.
just don't run the Paris half marathon when you listen to Lucy's part.
Yes. Yeah, take that advice to heart.
All right. Well, kings, queens, and non binary royalty. The time has come for me to have diastole as I lean back in my chair and listen to a dazzling story from the owner, well, not the owner, the dear friend and compadre of Mahalia, because she's owned
Yes,
by no one. No one owns,
exactly. No.
and an extraordinary clinician educator that many of us admire, none other than the matchless East Bay's finest, Ashley McMullen.
Oof, oof.
Yay, yay.
I'm receiving that, especially from the imaginary crowd that's cheering me on.
I was
Yeah,
really just giving you an opportunity to like get together what today's what is.
yeah. Well, I know the what, the story that comes behind it is it's gonna have to be touch and go because,
Okay.
I've
Okay.
never said it out loud before and we'll see how it
Okay.
goes.
I mean,
So let's try it. The what is redemption.
ooh, redemption.
Hmm.
We have never used redemption.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Mm-mm. We've used revelation,
Mhm.
but not redemption.
Yeah.
Okay. I like
Thank
it.
you. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Can we just stop there and
Just end it.
just
Redemption, the end.
great, great word. No, let's see where this goes. I would love your opinion on this experience of mine. So this was actually a patient encounter in clinic that I had in, the not too distant past. And so, my clinic is at the San Francisco VA, but particularly within our kind of a satellite clinic right in the middle of downtown San Francisco. What I love about this clinic is that we not only get to serve veterans, particularly veterans who have really struggled on the margins of society, whether it be from mental health, housing insecurity, substance use, all manner of chronic illness, and most of the time a combination of all of those things. The other thing that is special about our clinic is that, there's more social workers and other ancillary staff than there are providers. Our level of service to this population inspires me. I've talked about maybe this before, like we have free showers, we have washer and dryer, we have clothing, we have food for pets. It's really trying to meet people where they're at and get them what they need, and including emergency housing, which is hard to do in San Francisco. The other thing that we do is we try to bridge gaps in care, particularly for veterans who have had interactions with the criminal justice system. Justice, I say lightly, but the carceral system, because as you know, Kimberly, and I don't know if other folks know, like a lot of times, when folks are getting, picked up, and whether it's, the county jail all the way up to, the federal prison, folks are incarcerated for however long, and then they're just kind of kicked to the curb afterwards. And,
Yep.
it's a very vulnerable time, especially for folks with chronic illness. And so, I see a lot of vets who have had some interactions with that system. So on this particular day, so I do a full day of clinic a week, and I try my best to pre-round before, but sometimes, I'll miss stuff or people will get added on at the last minute. So I had a busy clinic day, and then I noticed that I had what looked like a new patient coming that I didn't really get much information on. It seemed like they had been scheduled at the last minute. I did a quick chart review before they came, and I see that the last time that person had been in my clinic had been like at least 10 or 12 years ago. So there was like a real gap in their interactions. And that happens. Sometimes people move, or people like get private insurance and want to use that. And then their insurance status changes and they end up coming back to the VA system. So looking at this chart, other than the fact that there was a gap in this person's care, I saw a couple social work notes that I didn't read yet, but there really wasn't much else about this person. So I bring him back to the exam room, and this is a gentleman, probably like middle age, like mid 50s or so. I remember him looking a little bit older, a little bit more worn down than his biological age. He just like had very kind eyes and just like a very, very polite demeanor. It was a
Mhm.
lot of like, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, just kind of deferential. And so, I start the visit and just like asking him, like, so what brings you here? Are you establishing care? Kind of what's most important to you? And he was like, honestly, ma'am, they made this appointment and told me to go, and I'm just kind of following directions. So at that point, I kind of was able to get a little bit more information. What I found out was the appointment was actually made a bit erroneously. So this person, within the span of, this gap in care, he had been incarcerated on federal charges and had just got out of the system like weeks before, was on kind of like a supervised release. And so his healthcare technically was still managed by the Department of Public Health. So the appointment with the VA for medical needs was not necessary. It seemed like it was more him trying to get engaged with social services. And so it's like, okay, well, we have time. Like, is there anything that you want me to know about or like to take care of? It seems like, he was, still interested in wanting to kind of be involved in the VA and come back into our system once, he was done with his supervised release. And so we went through his medical history, and being a VA doctor, I have a little extra time to spend with my new patients. And so it was mostly just kind of getting to know him. And I could tell just from his like vocabulary that he was a reader. He would throw these fabulous words just in the mix of the conversation around like books, literature. It was just a really nice human interaction. But it was kind of getting towards time, and I could tell he didn't really want to leave. But I had to kind of gently start this process of just like, okay, I gotta write this note. I gotta see my next patient. And, he was just taking his time gathering his stuff. And he was just like, man, you don't know what it feels like to have someone talk to you like you're a human being.
Mm,
He was like getting really emotional and, just started telling me a little bit about what it was like being incarcerated. And he was just like, I had to fight to maintain my humanity. People insulting him, feeling, worthless as a human being and treated like an animal.
mm,
And not to mention like the safety issue and having to be on guard for being taken advantage of or assaulted on a regular basis. And,
mm,
he's just kind of bringing me into that space and seeing him tear up as he's getting ready to leave. And so I asked him and I was like, would it be okay if I give you a hug?
mm,
you know, I've gotten to a point now in my career and my role as a PCP, and particularly with the patient population that I serve. I don't do this for everybody, but like I recognize that many of my patients really have not felt affection or like a kind human embrace. Um,
mm,
and I could sense that this was someone who had not had that probably in over a decade. And so I asked him if it would be okay, and he was said yes. And so I gave him a hug. We stood there for probably like 30 seconds. I could hear him kind of heaving a little bit and choking back sobs. And it felt very right, felt very much like the right thing to do. And it was healing for me as well. And he, gathered his stuff and then he was off. And it was just like a very, like one of those patient interactions that you leave feeling like you've put some good out into the world.
mm,
So I finished my next kind of round of patients and I go back to his note. And this time I have a little bit more time to look through his chart. And I see that he had had some interactions with another VA. It's one thing that we can do is access other VA systems. So, I could see a few of those notes, particularly like some of the social work notes. As a point of practice, I never ask or engage, typically to the extent that I can avoid it, what people have done to get arrested. But sometimes it's like there are hints that are documented because it also like matters in terms of what resources they're eligible for.
right.
So, I'm reading some of the notes, trying to get, what are your social needs or like what's actively being managed. And then I get a sense of what happened to get him arrested and sent to prison. I've had people be, convicted of like manslaughter, murder, like all this stuff. It doesn't really faze me. But I will say what this person did, it's too egregious for me to even kind of hint at.
Mm,
What this person did was like actually like a public news story, like it was in the media.
mm, mm,
Um, and like going back and seeing some of those articles and like how what was written about him, it was just like the way the narrative was taking shape in the public was like this man was an absolute monster.
mm,
And I'm taking this in and I was like really sitting with it because I was trying to gauge, it was just like, how is this landing with me? It was like an interesting practice. I'm just like, what does this mean? And when I was being honest with myself, I was just like, I don't feel any different. I
mm,
honestly don't. I wouldn't do anything different. And, and I don't know the extent to which, it wasn't like we got into any sense of remorse or he like, talked about just like, I messed up and I'm like, I feel really bad. Like that was never a part of our conversation. And I don't know where he stands in that line of thinking, but what I walked away with and kind of where I wanted to maybe land this plane was just like the realization of like what it means to be a doctor.
mm,
Um, I don't know that we get really in life many opportunities to see a man who's already been condemned and judged by society and create a space where they can feel unjudged and even held. Obviously, don't condone what he did, but it's just like it really doesn't matter. And it didn't matter in that moment. It doesn't matter now. Like in that space of being doctor and patient, it felt more like a privilege to just kind of focus on the person in front of me and not be in a position to have to judge. Uh,
yeah.
that's a story that's been sitting with me for a while. it reminded me people don't necessarily have to be their biggest mistake. And we don't necessarily have to be in a position to judge whether or not they're worthy of human kindness or compassion.
Yeah.
And in fact, you might just be the one to extend the compassion that someone needs to get on a better path. And
Yeah.
as a doctor, that's a really privileged position to be in.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, that's all very complicated, right? There's a quote, it's attributed, I believe, to Oprah Winfrey that says, "We are not our mistakes, we are our possibilities."
Mhm.
Every single person who's human is going to make a mistake of some sort. Now, is that mistake something extreme that involves altering a human life? No, not always. And definitely would never want to trivialize the experiences of anybody who has been the victim of or whose family have been impacted by
Mhm.
some type of violent crime or any such thing that involved a person going to prison for it, definitely not taking that away.
Mhm.
But we also know that none of these narratives, they don't ever just stand alone. They're always a part of a giant tapestry.
Mhm.
Usually that begins with somebody having their innocence robbed when they were little and enduring trauma, and then not having ways to cope with it, and then things happening to them, which lead to things happening to other people and in the
Mhm.
world that maybe they don't even understand what they're doing, right? So I think that part is really hard. I also know that we just have so many people who have been incarcerated for extended periods of time and who have been shown to be not guilty. And so, given that I know that some people are guilty, some people are not guilty, and it's just not my job to try to figure that out.
Yep.
What I do know is that when you were born, somebody held you in their arms, at least one person, even if it wasn't your parent, the nurse, somebody in the newborn nursery, somebody held you in their arms, looked at you, and wished the world for you.
Mm.
Somebody did.
Mm.
And no matter who you are, that happened probably. And then after that, things happened. And I like thinking that way because it kind of puts us all at the same starting point, right?
Yeah.
Somebody held, whomever is the person that you admire the most, somebody held them in their arms and looked at them and wished the world for them. And whoever you detest the most, even as we think of like people's feelings about political figures,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
both and all of those political figures, somebody held them in their arms and wished the world for them. And then
Yeah.
things happened after that that shaped how they view the world. Regarding you hugging him, I don't know if you ever heard this. I forgot who wrote it. It was like a therapist who writes books. I forgot her name. I think it's Victoria something. I could be wrong. But she said that you need 4 hugs a day for survival. You need 8 hugs a day for maintenance, and you need 12 hugs per day for growth.
Oh man, I'm behind. Yeah.
So when I'm with my small group, medical students, we always talk about this.
Mm.
So I'll tell them that like, oh, I got 2 hugs this morning, one from Harry and one from Zach. I need to catch up. So my students always help me get, 8 more hugs out of the
Mm.
day. And then somebody will come back and give me another hug, so I can get up to 12.
Hmm.
Um, but I imagine, I think when the person said that, I don't think she was just trying to be cute. I think she was serious.
Yeah.
She was
Mm.
talking about human touch. And I
Hmm.
mean, I'm sure it's connected to some article somewhere that I've not read at all, but I do think there is something about human touch and probably something that happens when someone embraces you.
Yeah.
And I like that you asked before you cross the threshold to hug him,
Hmm.
because I've asked patients, would they like a hug? And then I also offer, and if you are not a person who hugs, just know that I'm hugging you. And I've had somebody say, I'm not a hugger, but thank you.
Hmm.
So, not everybody wants a hug,
Yeah, exactly.
but I find that most do,
Hmm.
especially if you can sense that they need one.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. Crime is a real pesky thing. And um who like I've just made too many mistakes and screwed up too many things to feel like I'm not in a space to redeem somebody or to extend somebody grace. I mess up too much.
Yeah. Exactly. When I think about the time, the circumstance, everything that has allowed me to be who I am today, like a Black queer woman doctor living independently in the most expensive city in the United States, or one of the most,
Yeah.
there are plenty of steps along the way that could have landed me in a completely different life. And so I'm with you. And, not to say, that I'm immune from judging people or like,
Yeah.
but I also try to imagine like what would the world be like if we could all give everybody a chance, at least in their adult life, to feel like a fully evolved and seen and loved human being.
Or what would the world be like if everybody got what they had coming to them? If you
Mm.
actually, if you actually always got what you deserved, where would you be?
Oh,
Forget the other person. Where would you be if every single thing that you did wrong, you actually got what you deserved?
girl.
I mean, that right
Mhm.
there, like, let's say if every time you told a lie, big or small, every time you were unkind, anytime you had an unkind thought to somebody,
Mm.
anytime you didn't show empathy for somebody who was struggling, anytime you spoke a word about somebody away from them that wasn't flattering or kind, anytime you gossiped, whatever, you just can keep coming up with lists of things because we are human beings and we are imperfect and we stay screwing up. And given that, until you are at a point in your life where every single thing that you do, you feel confident that if you got what you had coming, you'd be still fine, you
Yeah.
know. And maybe some of y'all listening are so good that you're like, yeah, bring it on.
Yeah.
As for the person who chaperoned those teenagers, trust in me. If I got what I had coming, it would not be good. So, yeah, you've
Mm.
been given redemption,
Mhm.
regardless of what you believe and where you believe redemption comes from. It comes from somewhere because every single person who loves you forgives you every day for not being who they thought you were going to be.
Ooh.
I mean, that's the truth, right? That is the
Yeah.
whole truth. This I know as a mom, right? I know this as a mom, right? We love and accept people for who they are, but a piece of that involves us forgiving them,
Mhm.
right? You go in the bathroom with a little pregnancy test, you come out with two lines, and you have planned out your child's life all the way. You're like,
Mhm.
okay, this is what Ashley is going to be. She gonna be this. She gonna, wear her hair like this. This what the romantic partner she chooses look like. She gonna get straight A's. She gonna do this. She gonna do you. You actually did everything pretty much on point. There's probably some pieces that people, your grandmother and everybody didn't
Yeah.
necessarily
It's
account
like,
for.
yep.
um, you know, but if when people love you, they want you in their lives no matter what, and they just have to figure out how to adjust
Mhm.
and really forgive you
Yep.
um,
Yep. Yep.
for not being exactly who they anticipated.
Absolutely.
And probably problems arise when people who are supposed to be raising young people can't figure out how to either forgive themselves for not being who they thought they were going to be
Hmm.
and forgive their children for not being who they were supposed to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think when people start doing stuff later, it's like the patient who cusses you out. It ain't never about you.
Yeah.
Always about something else.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
again, until you are exactly who your mama thought you was going to be, and until you don't make no mistakes ever in your life, tread carefully with, pointing fingers and not wanting people to find redemption.
Mm.
Say word.
Yes.
Well, my sister, I sure do love you.
Mm.
And I don't even have to forgive you. I love you as you are. I'm so grateful that you are in my life
Mm.
and that God and the universe saw fit to have our paths cross and make us as close as we are. You make my life better.
Yes.
And, if I was in the East Bay, I would get my 13th hug of the day.
The virtual
Alas,
virtual hugs count.
let's
That's
let's
how.
hug it out.
Ah, there we go. I
That
feel
counts.
it. All right, cool.
Yay.
All right, if
Oh,
anybody's out in the East Bay, I need about 13 more. So come through.
yeah. All right.
All
Holla.
right. Love you, sis.
Love you more.
That wraps up this week's episode of the Human Doctor Podcast.
Special thanks to our favorite brother gastroenterologist, Dr. Chuma Obiname, for the beats. Shout out to the Dr. Ashley McMullen for editing and production.
Mad love to our podcast family at The Nocturnist and the Clinical Problem Solvers, our Med Twitter fam.
And especially shout out to all of you, our listeners.
Until next week, remember,
we see you and you are enough. Holla!